Welcome to another episode of the SLT Podcast, but today's episode is with a twist. I have an all-female panel with me today to mark International Women's Day 2025. So for today only, SLT Podcast stands for Serious Ladies Talking. I am going to pass to our first guest. Thanks, guys. First and last time I'm ever doing the intro for this. I'm going to pass over to Alison Kriel. If you'd like to introduce yourself to our viewers, please.
Absolutely. So I'm Alison Kriel. I used to be a head teacher, executive head teacher for quite a long time, and then a CEO, a job I did not relish. I retired officially in 2017, but I left to set up a platform called Above and Beyond Education, where everyone working towards the whole can connect, celebrate, share, ask for help. And it's a complex platform and it's free, join. And I also do keynote speaking, and I do a bit of writing, and I do a lot of mentoring.
Thank you. And over to the lovely Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Olulari. I work as the National Education Lead for Racial Justice for the Church of England, the National Society. I also coach. I'm a coach. I love being a coach. I also run two businesses where I'm the CEO of Techles, which stands for Tehillah Education Consultancy and Learning Solutions, because I love everything to do with learning and problem management, problem solving and cultural management and changing that, as well as I love fashion. So I run a fashion line called Styled by Pretty Kitty, where I use African material called Ankara and fuse it with other materials. So hence why I'm representing in one of my attires. Yeah.
Checking you out.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, I have a myriad of questions that I want to ask you, but because the clock is ticking, I will start with my most pressing one. What would you say has been your most challenging experience of being a woman in leadership?
Gosh, that's a hard one.
It's not easy.
I make no apologies, Alison.
I think the hardest thing is being taken seriously by men, especially white men,
Okay.
and finding your voice. Some of that is about my responsibility and to myself, and not allowing imposter syndrome to be to take over and stop me from holding, stop me from going forward, and all of those sorts of things. But the most challenging thing is recognizing that you're being undermined or you're not being taken seriously, and then finding a good way forward so that you can have voice, so that you can be taken seriously without losing your professionalism. So always holding on to your dignity, and being calm and being measured in what you say and how you do it. But I also think that if you're the kind of leader who makes and keeps promises to your community, so if you're very clear about what your vision and your values are and all of those sorts of things, you are therefore making your commitment, you're making promises, it's important to keep them, because that's probably the easiest way to be taken seriously, because then people can't come back and sort of say, well, you can do the talk, but you can't do the walk.
It's interesting that you mentioned keeping your professionalism. I think that can be quite difficult in the workplace when people are quite clearly trying to, I'm going to use the colloquialism, draw you out. I've often had to sleep on responses because if I respond straight away, I could be facing a disciplinary. So I think that's a key takeaway, actually, maintaining professionalism.
Completely. And you need to remember that Black women we can't afford to be seen to be angry because we've got that label of being angry black women, even though it's a very unfair label. And then addition, in addition to that, if you look at women generally, if a male leader has to speak to a member of staff because of a concern, and he speaks in a very clear way in terms of what his expectations are, then that would be seen to be authoritative. But if a woman does it, then that's seen as aggression. And it's my understanding, and apologies if I've misunderstood this, but I've been told that the vast majority of complaints against managers are against women, not men, because of the way in which us being authoritative is perceived. People do not like it. Men and women do not like it, which means that more women are likely to be complained about.
Interesting.
That's such a good question, and I am struggling to answer it. But the things that popped to my head was taking up space. I think
Okay.
that's been my big challenge, and being like taking up space in terms of being my authentic self, not having to assimilate or code switch, and to be who I am really inside there. And who I am is reliable, like you said, keeping to my word, being fair. But like you said, there is a stereotype, especially being a black woman, especially being a beautiful black woman, might I add, because there's this stereotype of, I mean, someone has actually said to me, "Oh, you're a scientist. I just thought you were fine for nothing."
Wow.
But yeah,
Wow.
no, 100%. And I'm like, okay, but it's being your authentic self, because they say you and they just, allow me to use this word, sexualize you, rather than seeing you as a professional who also likes fashion, might I add, and you want to look good, but still professional. So I think for me, it's been my authentic self and taking up space, but taking up space in every single space. So I was thinking about taking up space as a mom who is in senior leader, being able to say, I'm fantastic at what I do as a leader, but I am going to go to see my child's nativity and not feel guilty. That's one intersectionality. And taking up space in terms of finances and going, actually, I want to be paid as equal as my peers, and taking up space in terms of communication and leadership. I had literally that experience you had where now it was a male leader before me in a job role, then I took it over. And oh my gosh, I literally had to pull them up and go, the person before you openly said he doesn't do any work.
Wow.
Right? And we joke about it, right? No one's ever complained about him. No one's ever said anything, derogative or anything. We just, just because. I've now taken up this role. I am working. The department has resources, really doing my work. Oh, you misspelled the letter, the word. I'm like, number one, I'm dyslexic. So, just correct it or support me. But it's that idea of taking up space. And I think that's been a challenge, especially when I'm line managing white males. Because society, that's the sentence of, oh, who are you? Are you the cleaner? That assumption of you can't be in senior leadership here. Why? Because you don't look like somebody. How does a head teacher look like? Why would you just walk into this space and assume I am not the person in charge? And that's it, is the idea of taking up space and being my authentic self, which is professional, very good, excellent. I'm not suggesting mediocrity, but I'm saying even when we keep putting ourselves out there, they want to use the lens of society on us. So I think that's where I've struggled is just finding my voice, my space, and taking up space and being the awesome person I want to be.
And you are absolutely beautiful. And I think that whole thing around authenticity is just so powerful because, yes, if you having to pretend to be something that you're not, you can never reach your true potential. So organizations that allow you to be fully authentic are going to see the best of you.
True.
And that's where you create a culture of belonging where everyone can go and be their true, beautiful selves, irrespective of who they are. And also just to remember, that women sometimes wear suits to be taken seriously.
Yep.
And the reason why they're doing that is to hide their sexuality. I'm proud of being a woman. I should be allowed to dress as I want to embrace me being a woman. There's a huge thing going on in all our schools about how Black women do their hair. And they expect, people should be allowed to do their hair how they want to, because as soon as we've been forced to straighten it or make it look more European, they're asking us to mask our Blackness. So, all of this masking just is something that gets in the way of us reaching our true potential. So I couldn't agree with you. Your answer is a million times better than mine. Because embracing your authenticity and having the courage to embrace your authenticity and say, this is who I am. And if you allow me to be who I am, you will see the best of me. And a strong organization will allow that. A weak organization won't.
It's funny you speak about the outward appearance because I love my African prints, as you know. And, they have had, oh, is that what you're wearing? What? And I'm like, yes, it is. It is professional. It is, you're wearing a pencil skirt, I'm wearing a pencil skirt. The only difference is the patterns on there. Oh, yes, I am going to wear that because it cheers me up.
But you're right.
But I wonder if the same question would be posed to somebody of a different culture.
No.
If
what about a woman wanting to wear sari to work?
Precisely.
So funny thing is I was made aware of comments made about something like that. And where I've been privileged to travel, teachers wear saris to work in India.
And they do a great job.
Thank you.
They do a brilliant job.
So why are we having this conversation?
But we also have this conversation constantly about a woman's right to cover her head or not. Do you know what? I know some of the best feminists I know are Asian women who choose to cover their hair. They're not being dominated in any kind of way. It is their personal choice. And why others feel that they've got the right to dictate to them about covering their hair is just absolutely shocking. It is a personal decision. And I think that, people who can't accept that there are empowered women who choose to cover their hair, they're the ones with the problem, rather than them telling us that those are women who are being subverted by men. Because actually, women being subverted by men happens in every culture, irrespective of colour, irrespective of class, irrespective of colour, class, age. It happens. You go back in history, and this is the eternal problem. Women are put down by men, are dominated by men, or there's subversion going on. This is our eternal problem, and to want to sort of pick out one particular culture and say they are more subverted than another is a complete fallacy.
Yep.
It makes me angry. You may not have noticed.
I think for me, my biggest challenge is actually quite current. We've spoken about this the perimenopause.
Ah,
Dun, dun, dun. So those of you who don't know, the perimenopause is the phase before the actual menopause, and it is positively awful. You laugh, but it was like all of these changes were happening to me, and I didn't know what was happening because I'd not had the conversation with.
our grandparents didn't talk about it. It was taboo.
And, it kind of started to impact me at work. It affected my sleep. Anyone who knows me knows that I love to sleep. But I kind of developed insomnia. I was having like these itching episodes, the hot flushes. I was irritable, more so than usual, at work. And I lead a largely male team, and I had to say to them, look, I'm going through the perimenopause. And they're like, oh, what's that? And I had to talk to them. I said, listen, it's best that you email me, because if you catch me in the corridor, today is not the day. My hormones are all over the place. And I think it's something.
Did you just say they didn't know what perimenopause was?
No, because some of them are in their early 20s.
But they don't have mothers
who are not having the conversation.
And this is where the problem is, isn't it? It's like you said, we need to speak about this topics. I think when we spoke about it in my organization, they wanted to do it just for females.
Oh, well,
and someone said, no, are you suggesting the males don't have sisters, parents? They need to know.
Education is key. There's a lovely video that I just found by chance today of this black woman at some event or whatever. And she chooses to, she has no hair.
Okay.
But she's having a hot flush. And you can see the steam around her head. And she's got the most glorious smile. And she's just embracing who she is. But I kind of thought all these years of women being gaslit and being told it's psychosomatic, it's not true, it can't be that bad. If men had to go through menopause, we'd be treating it in a very, very different way.
Yep.
But it's a woman thing, and women we've colluded with this. We've kept quiet, and I'm really glad that you can speak so openly about it on your podcast and not feel like you have to apologize for it or whisper. But it's something that we all have to go through. And I think that what we're doing is hopefully making it better for our daughters, because I kind of think about what my grandmother went through. Completely misunderstood, or my mother went through, completely misunderstood, and I feel quite embarrassed about it. And also, you might have joked with my brothers and my brother and my sister about mum having you kind of you turn it into this big joke, and it's not a joke. And now there are organizations losing cases in court. It's beginning to cost organizations money because they don't have good practice put in place to support menopausal and perimenopausal women. So it's everything from classroom, how close they are to the toilet, the need for the temperature to be adjusted, the exhaustion. There's a whole range of things. And so if you are a male school leader and you don't have decent policies put in place to support most of the women in your school, then you are setting yourself up for failure, because you're going to lose out big time. And perimenopause actually starts from the age of 30 for most women. That's where you begin to see the erosion of cells and all of those sorts of things. So the big stuff that we talk about, some women will have it maybe from 38 onwards, but the early signs will be there from 30 or so. So you may think you've got a really young workforce, but those women, we all on different timelines, and there will be women in the organisation, irrespective of what their date of birth is, they will be going through a difficult time and need to be supported rather than made into the butt of the jokes in the staff room.
So my next question is, both of you have very illustrious careers. What would be your one highlight that you could share with our viewers? Alison's like, one? Yes, Alison, just one, please.
I can't really choose one, but what immediately comes to mind are just really special moments with the children,
Same.
because children really help you to feel valued.
Yeah.
And it could be anything from the smallest note, just saying thank you. Or I can remember sort of being, I live in what used to be a mainly Turkish area, and there's a really famous bakery. And it was the summer holidays, and I went down to the bakery, and I was there in my vest, t-shirt, and shorts and flip-flops, and
I think I know where this is going.
and standing outside the shop was this boy, and he'd come to us, and he'd come to us on a permanent exclusion, and I'm not into exclusion. And so we quickly established why he'd been excluded, and why he'd been so aggressive in his previous schools. And so we worked with him, and we worked with his mum, and I was there, and it must have been August, or I can't remember. It was in summer holidays, and he was selling the blue eyes, the Turkish blue eyes, to people as they were coming in out of the shop. And he was with his grandfather, and he sort of said, "It's her, it's her." And his grandfather's going, "What?" And he sort of said, "It's my head teacher." She said, "Do you know what I got for my SATs? It's my head teacher. She helped me."
Aww.
And he sort of said, "I'm going to go to secondary school, and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be a good person." And I just kind of like that. And even now, there's I've got various people on who I maintain contact with. Is one particular girl. She's a woman now, in her 30s. And she's a very complex person, and she spent from the age of 4. She spent a disproportionate amount of time with me, because she was a child in distress, and I couldn't send her home because I knew that she was going to go home to somewhere that wasn't always going to be the best place for her to be. And when she was about 15 or 16, she and her mom came to find me, and she'd been permanently excluded from school and just had the most horrendous time. And her mom said, "You sort her out." And we kind of maintained contact after that. And she and I have even done a keynote together.
Oh, wow.
And she talks quite a lot about the power of having someone who believes in you and makes it worthwhile. And she knows that I've got her back. In fact, I met her for coffee quite recently, and I'm so proud of her. She's gone through the most awful time, but she's the first person in her family to go to university. She's got her own company. She's talented. Yes, she has complex challenges, because sometimes when you have an early start in life, which means that you are constantly fighting for your worth, and her mum's really not well, and that would have been a key reason for her presenting as she did, and those problems continue, but she's holding her own, and I feel very proud that I still know her, and she still wants me to know how she's doing, because I feel that that's what I went into teaching for. I went into teaching because I wanted to make a difference to the lives of young people. And when I hear about it, whether it's the headline, "I went to Oxford and now I'm a doctor," and there are some of those, through to I had to scrape myself through school, but now I did go to university, I did graduate, I now have my own company, through to this is what I'm doing right now. And it's a small thing, then I always think, everything's. I just feel enormously proud of my pupils, enormously proud. So the one thing is my pupil, and actually, no, I have to lie. I'm also enormously proud of the people that I've led, because I've got so many people who came to me not knowing what they wanted to do. "Can I be a TA in your school?" "Yes, you can be a TA in your school. You can teach. would you like to become a graduate teacher in my school? And now seeing them flourish and seeing them become school leaders, and they are brilliant school leaders. So it's the impact that you can have on lives, which then filters out into society in a big way. So there you are. Me blowing my own trumpet. Very uncomfortably. Very uncomfortably.
I don't think people do that enough, you know. So thank you for sharing. I think that's wonderful to hear.
So it's very similar. I think we're living quite similar lives, because as soon as you said it, it was the children. It's those conversations with the young people. Two I remember quite vividly was when my last time in the classroom, when I was moving out I'm still in education, but moving out, and the sixth formers were like, "Miss, I hear you're leaving," you know, no. And then one person goes, "Miss, because of you, I read." Another one goes, "Miss, because of you, I'm doing," and it's just the idea of they're watching you, and because they see what you're doing, they are making positive decisions. And one just said, "Miss, I always knew you were a big fish in a small pond." You know, I was like, yes. It's and can I say they were all females, because it was a female school, and they then started saying, "Miss, this is what I want to do." So I literally just sat down on the stairs because of my health, but you could see this group of young females just wanted to share their hopes and dreams and what they're going to achieve in life, because they're not going to sit down for what society wants them to be. And might I also add, they were all from a UKME background, so that made me even more hopeful to go, #winning, we've got this, you know. And another one quite recently, minding my own business on the bus. And yeah, it's when you see them out in public, innit? And they remember, oh my gosh, this one's actually a human. Like, she doesn't live in school 24/7. And this young man,
to the schoolkeeper,
he came down from the bus, and then he goes, hi, miss, excuse me, because you're Miss, right? And then he called, and I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, don't you recognize me? No, because when I last saw you, you were like this. Now you were a grown man. And he's telling me stories of how, because I didn't let him, again, it's believing in them. Because I'm like, as long as you're in my classroom, you are going to flourish. We will work together. We will figure it out, you know. And it's those conversations. I knew someone said, "Oh, I only like science because of Miss. Now she's left. I don't like science." And that breaks my heart. But it just shows you the power of relationship and believing in these children and young people. Yes. And he came down and he goes, and I go, "So where are you off to? You know, I've never seen you around here." He goes, "No, I'm going for a party down there, as young people do, you know." And he goes, and I'm like, but you do know the bus goes all the way down, right? You stopped like 4 stops before because I know where the party was. He goes, "Yes, miss. I came down because I thought it was you I saw get on the bus, and I wanted to say thank you."
Oh, wow. That's really special.
And the young man now had to start walking all the way to the back. But you know, that's a highlight. It's the children and young people. And in my current position, my highlight is when the leaders like us participants are winning. You know, sometimes it's not even about becoming a head teacher. It's about growing into their authentic self. You know, like someone called me and goes, "Elizabeth, I did not get the job, but I smashed that interview." Just see, it's the idea of they weren't even going to apply. And they applied.
Wow.
It's just that glow. And she goes, and I didn't even have to go, "Oh, so would you keep applying?" She goes, "Elizabeth, I'm going straight on here. I saw 2 more jobs because," and I'm like, wow, that's it for me. That's it for me, because I strongly believe representation matters. I don't believe, because I know there's a caveat of, having people who look like me in high places. I can't remember the slag they say people in high places are not the solution or something along those lines. But I do believe that representation matters, because you can't be what you can't see. And I strongly believe that. I know there are other caveats. I don't know if we're allowed to speak about politics, or like Kemi Badenoch, Rishi Sunak, edit this if it's not allowed. I get what they're saying about just having people in high places who look like us does not mean decolonization happens and racism stops. However, I do believe in visual representation to a large extent.
Absolutely.
I really do. It's nice to go into a school's website and look at the SLT page and see that you could also belong. You could also aspire.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than looking at school's website where you've got the 1 or 2 black kids on every photo to say this is inclusion, and then you look at the staff, and it's not there. That tells a story in itself.
Yeah.
Can I just add something?
Of course.
Yes.
I don't really talk very much about my achievements and all that kind of stuff unless I'm asked. And quite recently, I had to do a talk, and I was asked to bring someone to introduce me. So I got my daughter.
Aww.
And she came up I was staying in the hotel, and she came up the night before, and we went out to dinner, and she sort of said, right, I've done my research. You've done your research on your mother. And she sort of said, no, I've just got to do this properly. And she sort of said, but you didn't tell me these things. And she sort of said, I found this stuff on the internet, but it's also by chance. She sort of said, I had to research it because it's not anywhere obvious. And she sort of said, did you really do this? Is this true? And I said, yes, it's true. So I think I was, it then meant that when she introduced me, I didn't know what she was going to say, but I couldn't start speaking at first because it made me cry. It was
Really?
so beautiful. And yeah, it was really, really moving.
Wow.
But I think that we should also make sure that we talk to our daughters
Yes.
about what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that they know what they can achieve, and hopefully things will be a bit easier for her. But it was probably one of my most moving. I mean, I don't cry, and I'm kind of there thinking, how am I supposed to speak after what you've just said? So tell your daughters what you're doing.
Can I just jump in there? Because I know the theme for 2025 is accelerate action, right?
Yeah.
And when you said you don't normally hype yourself, I was going to say to you, can I encourage you to do so? And then little did I know your story was going to be about your daughter hyping you, right? But I was privileged this morning to listen to a sermon, and the title of the sermon was Wear Your Blessings Well.
Oh.
And this person was talking about how he's wearing his blessings, and he's talking about what his grandfather did, his grandmother did, talking about all the hardship they went through. And he goes, I humbly wear my blessings, but I think there's an added value for us as women who identify as a UKME, right, to wear our blessings well. And I say, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills, and everywhere. Like, we need to talk about
My
this.
grandma used to say.
Sorry, I'm giving you some now old school vibes now. Because, and I say this, my daughter was in school, and her friend just received a diagnosis of being dyslexic. And you know how young people do, they all rally around and try and give hopeful thoughts. And my daughter said, and she comes home to tell me this, she goes, it's okay, my mom's also dyslexic, and look, she's doing good in life. I was like, do you see? It's that idea of open it. Like, I am currently writing an essay, and I'm getting my daughter to proofread it. And it's just opening the doors and creating that awareness, like if I could have, I would have brought them to this podcast recording. Why? It's just showing them what is available, because unfortunately, just like you said, society kinds of, those conversations of, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think you should be a healthcare assistant. There is nothing wrong with being a healthcare assistant. It's the fact you looked at me and decided That no, you can't do chemistry, physics, and biology. It's not your sort of people who do it.
Yeah.
And I think I shared this on the podcast where one of my daughters, key stage one, they had labeled her. I tell you no lie. They had labeled her and they had labeled me. And this lady said to me, "Oh, you're the teacher, isn't it? Because you're a teacher, your child is not going to do well in school."
What?
I'm not making this up, right? Um, and she then continued and said, "And you're also a single mom, so your child's not going to do well." Again,
Goodness gracious.
I work hard, work with my daughter. The key stage one phonics is such a long time for me now. I think it's the phonics and some exams they do in key stage one. This child got 99%. The woman decided, I picked up. So as a teacher, I'm sure you realize childcare can be an issue. And she goes, "Oh, you've come to pick up today, shaming me because I'm a working mom," right? And I'm like, "Okay, yes, anytime I can get out of school, I will come and pick up my children." And then she goes, "Oh, interestingly, we've got the results now." She ushers to the TA to bring the results. She looks for my daughter's name. And she looked stunned because she saw how well my daughter did. And then she then goes, and I quote, "But it's not her type I put on the more able table."
Well,
Key stage one.
wow.
And this is my story of why, please, we need to tell. So for me, I can't wait to bring my children to go, "Come and see what Alison and Rena did," so they can see.
Yeah.
Hashtag winning. We've got this.
Hashtag winning.
Hashtag winning. Love it. In fact, I think I'm going to ask our editor to make sure that she puts that on all of our posts. Hashtag winning. Honestly, it's just been absolutely delightful speaking with both of you this afternoon. If you've got one thing that you would like to tell young women out there before we wrap up, what would it be? We've had a theme of authenticity.
I think really allow yourself to be seen in your true, authentic self, because that's the way you rise. It's the way in which you can be more sure-footed. Because if you are trying to walk in if you imagine footprints on a beach,
Yeah.
and you can either make your own footprints, and those will be absolutely beautiful, or you can try and walk in someone else's footprints. Can you imagine what that line will look like? So just be yourself, believe in yourself, make promises that you can keep. And if you have to make a change because of circumstances beyond your control, then be open and transparent and say, "This is why I'm making changes." And then you go back and you can make new promises and keep those promises and all those sorts of things. But be conscious in your actions. If you apply for a job, don't go for the job title. Go for the right job in the right place where you can be embraced and valued for who you are, where you know you can contribute to the whole, the success of the whole. If you are going somewhere where you are having to pretend to be somebody else, where you don't have voice, where you don't feel valued, how can you do your best? You owe that much to yourself.
Wise words.
I'm not going to try and give all those wise words. I'm going to try and be like snippets and hashtags. Okay, so just hear me out. So I would say hashtag you're more than enough. Hashtag winning. Hashtag eduruptors. Hashtag your hashtag Alison. Positive disruption, did you say?
I'm a positive disruptor.
That's the word. Hashtag positive disruptor, right? And that's my go to the young females out there is hashtag take up space. Hashtag you're more than enough. You've got this.
Love it.
Yeah, and I put out a tweet today, and I'm trying to find it. I said, read books on the banned list.
Yep.
Watch films they want removed.
Yep.
Research the history they want to be removed from the school curriculum.
Yep.
Watch news from a range of sources. And then ask yourself, what don't they want me to know? And why don't they want me to know it? Become a critical, informed thinker.
Amen.
So, which book would you recommend for our viewers to read? And again, you can only have one.
Oof.
You go first.
One.
Just one.
Oh, gosh. This is hard. Okay, I'm going to go with Gosh, this is hard. No, I'm going to go with this. Modern Leaders Inspired by Mother Nature.
Mhm.
And it is written by Funke Michaels and sorry, just want to get the names right. Funke Michaels and Injay. So Modern Leaders Inspired by Mother Nature. And I think the reason is because it brings that African authenticity
Yeah.
into leadership, and that idea of being a leader as a female and as someone who identifies as a UKME practitioner.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It's cruel doing one book.
Yeah.
You know I love you dearly, Alison.
But a book that really made I was blown. I had to listen to it all. I listened to it. I didn't read it. It's called White Tears, Brown Scars by Ruby Hamad, and it looks at intersectionality. So it, the bumfies, what happens when racism and sexism collide. And I think that's probably the book for this podcast, but it's not the book.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching another episode. Please make sure that you like, share, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. We will see you again. You take care.